Hi, my name is Freya. Welcome to my kitchen. Because it's getting near to Christmas, we're going to do a seasonal one today and we're going to be making mince pies. Now I'm sure that most of you adore mince pies, but for those of you who don't know, mince pies are basically short crust pastry that we then fill with mincemeat. Now this obviously isn't meat, don't worry. It's a very English thing. It's a mix of kind of sugar and apples and raisins, and it's very, very Christmassy, which is why we'll be making it today. You don't need a lot of equipment. You're going to need a mixing bowl and a rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a wine bottle. And you're also, the main thing that you might not have is you're going to need a baking tray, which has got like cupcake holes in it. So a muffin tray. If you don't have one of these, they do cost only £1 from Poundland, or they're very, very cheap from other places as well. So it is worth having because you can use them to make not only mince pies but also cupcakes. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is preheat our oven. So I've just preheated my oven to 200 degrees. If you're using a fan oven, then just maybe make it a little bit cooler, so maybe 180 degrees. So the first thing that we have to start with is making the short crust pastry. Now you can just buy this in a pack from the shop and roll it out, and that's fine if you're running very short of time and everything, but this is actually something that's really, really easy to make. And you don't even have to know a recipe. The basic thing is half fat to flour. So I'm using butter today, which is cool, and flour. Use plain flour, not self-raising, otherwise they're going to rise too much. So plain flour. So half fat to flour means I'm going to use 6 ounces of butter, and then I'm going to use 12 ounces of flour. So we'll just measure those out. Okay, so what's important to remember here is that we're going to be rubbing together the flour and the butter. So if you leave the butter out in the room for a little bit beforehand, it's just going to soften, which is going to make that a lot easier. Alternatively, you can pop it in the microwave for about 5 seconds. Do not melt it, it should just be softened. So now I'm measuring out 12 ounces of flour. And popping that in the bowl with the butter. And now what we're doing is we are rubbing it together. So we want to break the butter up into chunks like this. You can do it with a knife, that would be fine. So once you've broken all of that butter up into kind of bite-sized chunks, we're now going to rub it together. Now the key to this is professional cooks and chefs say that the palm of your hand should stay completely clean. And what they mean by that is we're just going to use our fingertips. So you pick up the flour and you rub it with the butter in between your fingertips. And what you're doing is when you're doing that, you're making little circular motions with your thumb on your fingers. So wedge together your fingers and make little circular motions. Sorry if I'm being patronising, I just really want people who've never made mince pies before to be able to do this. And then we just keep on going, just keep on rubbing that butter and flour between it. And lift it nice and high. You can probably see from my fingers I'm lifting it above the level of the bowl, because what we want to do is get lots of air in there. And our aim is to make the butter and the flour like small breadcrumbs. I just love this bit. It feels so nice. It's really therapeutic. Plus it just smells so nice. Basically we just keep rubbing. It's going to take about 5 minutes, depending on how quick you are. But every time that you feel like you've done it all, if you just give the bowl a shake, you're going to see all those big bits of butter come up to the surface again. For me, there's nothing like mince pies to make me feel Christmassy. Just the whole flavour and smell of them with mulled wine. It's delicious. So this is the bit where I like to add just a little bit more flavour to my pastry. So you can just leave it like this and keep it super traditional. I'm going to add a tiny bit of cinnamon, just to give a tiny bit of spice to my short crust pastry there. So just a tiny sprinkling. And then we add either some milk, which I'm using oat milk because it's dairy free, but you can also use a bit of water or regular milk. And when I say a splash, so I just estimate it really, but if you want to be super precise, first of all add 2 tablespoons, and then we might add a bit more later. So then what we do with this, so mix it together, and then we'll get our hands in there too. So the real trick here is not to add too much water or milk. It always looks like you're going to need more than you are. So I've just added about 4 tablespoons, and now I'm going to get my hands in there and draw it together. When I draw it together, I'm basically just moulding it like it's Play-Doh and trying to make it stick together in one lump. We can always add a bit more milk, but if you make it too sticky, you have to start adding flour, and that's going to ruin the balance of your pastry really. So you can see that already it's forming like this lump that looks a lot more pastry-like. And I actually am going to add a little bit more splash of milk. So now I've got the pastry completely ready and it looks like a lovely ball. We're going to roll this out. Also, just to mention at this point, I haven't added any sugar to the pastry because I think the mincemeat I'm using is quite sweet. But if you do want to add a little bit of sugar just to give the whole thing a bit of a sweeter vibe, then you can add about 3 tablespoons of sugar to this, and that will make it a bit sweeter. So now what we're going to do is flour up the surface and roll out our pastry. So be quite generous with the flour because you really don't want the pastry to stick at this point. And also remember to put a bit of flour on your rolling pin. Again, if you don't have a rolling pin, as I've mentioned in other videos, you can use a wine bottle or an empty wine bottle filled with water. Now this, you're going to want to roll it out so it's about ½ centimetre thick. But again, if you like thicker pastry, do it thicker. That's already quite thick though. And remember, you're also going to want enough pastry, not just for the mince pies themselves, but also for the lids. Okay, so now we've got our beautiful pastry all rolled out. We're also going to need one of these cupcake trays or muffin trays, and I've just sprinkled a bit of flour in there so that the mince pies won't stick. Now, I don't have cookie cutters with me here, so we're going to use 2 glasses. One for lids, which has got a smaller perimeter there, and one for the actual mince pies themselves. So we're going to put it down on the pastry and give it a little twist. And then you've got a perfect circle there, which we're just going to pop straight into the mince pie tray. So the recipe I've used today I will put below in the description box with the amounts that I've used, and this is enough to make 12 large mince pies with lids. Going to want to fill our mince pies up with our mincemeat. So this one is from Morrison's, and I think it was about £1.60 for quite a large jar, and you can put it in the fridge afterwards if you don't use it all, and use it in the next few weeks. So I've got a teaspoon here, and I like to be generous in my mince pies. Nothing more disappointing than being stingy in a mince pie. Our mince pies are full and looking like little piles of delight. We're going to add the lids on. So we're going to place the lid on and then carefully pinch round with your thumb to stick the 2 bits of pastry around the edge together. You should have a nice fat mound in the middle where you've got all of your filling. So as you can see, I'm just pinching round with my thumbs, pushing in on these edges to make a nice little fat bit in the middle. And then I like to get a fork and I'm just going to poke a little holes in there, and that's just so that any heat from the mince pie can escape. Now I'm just doing very basic lids here, but I'm going to use some of the extra pastry in a minute to make little decorative pastry leaves to add on top. But if you want to leave them plain, that's fine, they're going to taste just the same, and you can use the extra pastry to make some more mince pies. So now I'm going to literally cut tiny leaves out of the pastry, and I'm just doing it by hand. So there is no trick to this, they're just roughly leaf shape like this with a knife, and then placing them on top so that it looks a bit more festive. You could do some other kinds if you wanted to do a little star or a heart shape. These are the traditional one though. So now we've got a delicious looking tray of mince pies, which look beautifully fat, and we're going to put them in the oven. So again, just to remind you, it's 200 degrees and they're going to be in there for 15 to 20 minutes. So here we have it, delicious looking mince pies. I've just sprinkled mine with some icing sugar on top as well, just to make them look like they've got a little sprinkling of snow on them. I hope that this encourages you to make your own mince pies. As you can see, it genuinely is so quick and easy, and they taste 10 times better than the store-made ones, and they have love in them as well, so it's all very Christmassy. So yeah, please leave your comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to show you how to cook.